Hello, my name's Hemingway Jones and welcome to the channel. Now today, I'd like to talk about something that's very special to me, and that's journaling. Okay, so talking about journaling is kind of a broad subject and there's a lot involved, more so than you might think of right now. And I've learned a lot over the years. I've been journaling for over 20 years and really for most of my life. But the sad part is I don't have a lot of my earlier journals. And I'm going to tell you why, and hopefully you won't make the same mistake. So one of the things we're going to cover is what is it that I write every day in my journals? And some of those answers might surprise you, so you're going to want to stick around for that. I'm also going to tell you where to buy some journals, and how to find really good journals, and which are the best ones that will have a habit of sticking around, because some of my journals just didn't make it through the years. So I began journaling as a teenager. As you can imagine, it was the typical angst-ridden, angry young man stuff that you would expect. I really feel bad that I don't have those journals anymore. Part of the reason is that they were school-style notebooks, and in those days, in the 1980s, they were spiral-bound. They weren't very good quality. There were a couple of incidents in some of the rental apartments I had over the years where there was water intrusion, and it just destroyed them entirely. Sadly, they just didn't survive through the decades. I do regret that they weren't hardbound notebooks that may have had a shot at making it through the years. But so my earliest journals were collections of poems, and I would write poems every day. It was always based on whatever emotional issue I had at the time. And I think it was really valuable for me as a teenager to have this outlet. So as I grew up, as I went through college and entered the working world, I still found that writing about whatever problem I was facing really helped me to break it apart and to find ways to solve it. So there was sort of a beginning of me working things out, because I do have some anxiety issues. I think we all do. And I realize that much of what I worry about never comes to pass. And it was journaling that really helped me realize that after decades of seeing the same sort of problem described and not seeing that horrible consequence that I was worried about. So it was a really good activity for me. So one of the big inspirations for me to take journaling seriously was this book, David McCullough's John Adams. So John Adams was an avid journaler. And he had these descriptions of his days, his thoughts, and his life. And it just seemed so valuable for him that I wanted some of that for myself. So I bought my first leather journal. And this is the kind of $10 leather journal that you would find in pretty much any stationery store. I bet Staples would sell something like this. So very easy to come by. But now, 20 years on, it still looks really good, and this is soft cover leather. It has decent enough pages, has a nice ribbon to keep your place. It's a good enough leather journal to hold your thoughts and keep them safe through the years. Now here's something really interesting about when I decided to take journaling seriously. So the first entry in this journal was August 3rd, 2001. So to give you an idea of the power of journaling, I know what I was thinking, feeling, talking about before the events that happened that September. And I also have all my thoughts about that event and what happened afterwards. So that is extremely valuable to me, to have such a historic event and to see my interaction with it, to see myself coming to terms with all the anger and loss and everything else we were feeling on that day. It's all documented in here. That's very, very special. Consequently, I always keep the ribbon on that day. That first serious journal and the fact that I had it on that historic day really cemented within me how important it was to have a book that's hardy enough and strong enough to keep my writings organized. And one of the best things about leather journals is that they end up looking better with time. The more aged that they look, the more interesting they become. So I went in search of another really nice, hearty journal. Where do we find hearty journals? I mean, not everyone has equal access to these things. Some of us live near big cities. Big cities have a lot of options, and some of us are out in rural areas. Now, fortunately, we can all order whatever we like over the internet. But let's say you want to head out right now and bring something home. One of the best places, believe it or not, is Barnes & Noble. Barnes & Noble has excellent leather journals. And the reason is that most of them come from Florence. It's a company called Fiorentina. And the paper inside is decent, it's good for fountain pens, and then they have various leather covers. Now, one of my earliest is this crazy thing, which isn't something I would buy now. But it must have been the only option at the time. I don't specifically remember buying this, but this journal is 20 years old and it looks practically brand new. A couple of little bends on the edges here. The gold on the end papers is still shiny and fresh. It has a bit of cushioning under the covers, and it has this crazy Sacred Heart design with gold embossed on the cover. And I doubt I paid more than, actually I paid $25 at the time. Now this was 20 years ago, but there you have it. So Barnes & Noble is a place where you can find journals consistently. Now, I used to buy a lot of these travelers journals. Now, they're a really interesting design, and I sort of love how old-fashioned they seem, how they tie, and you have this sense as if you're some sort of Egyptologist or someone out there traveling in the field and taking notes. But I will say that there's a couple of things to consider if you go for a journal like this. One is that this flap isn't all that comfortable as you're writing. It tends to intrude upon the right page. So you either want to put it over there or you want to bend it out of the way somehow. So it's a little less practical in that sense. And also, you have to wrap it up every time you put it away and unwrap it every time you take it out. So that gets a little tiring. And as you shelve these kind of journals, they sort of shelve uneven because it has this flap on the side. So just consider that. But as a journal, it's actually kind of nice, and it's very nice when you travel because you can shove different stubs and things that you pick up along the way, and they have a tendency not to fall out as easily. Now this is a perfect example of a Barnes & Noble journal. It's hardcover, it's made by Fiorentina, it's not very expensive. These are under $50. They're made in Italy. They have a nice end paper to write your name. The edge papers are usually in gold, which is nice. The leather is very nice, and it usually has some kind of an interesting cover. In this case, it's the Three Graces from Botticelli. So, pretty nice journal, highly recommend it. A journal like this used to last me about a year. Now I go through these in a couple months. Here's another journal that I picked up from Barnes & Noble, another travel journal. It has the same issues as the other one. It's a little more portable, being smaller. I did get this evidently in 2006. So decent size, very easy, very portable, but once again, you have to wrap it up each time you go to write. Now, here's an example of a journal that I really love. This one is from 2006, and frankly, I wish I had bought more of these. It has a hard cover, as if, I'm pretty sure there's wood in here, and it's bound like a medieval book. It's very tight. It has these bulges on the side at the spine. It's in very nice shape, very robust, maybe slightly impractical for hauling around with you, but when it's done, imagine having a whole shelf full of these journals. Just beautiful. Here is another nice journal from Barnes & Noble. Same formula, gorgeous leather, gold on the side, an interesting, I don't know, what would you say, a gentleman at his study in the Renaissance. On the cover, beautiful gold end papers, and once again, another Fiorentina product. Very, very nice. For under $50, you cannot beat a journal like this. This is another beautiful Barnes & Noble Fiorentina journal with the three graces once again, but this time they take up the entire cover. I hope you don't mind me showing you these. They're just so beautiful. I want to share them with you guys. Here is another journal that I got from Barnes & Noble. So here's something else to look out for. Whenever you see these sort of tabs on the journal, it looks really cool, but it's not practical. It's a bit annoying as you have to keep removing it every time you write. And they don't shelve as nicely either. As you push another book, it gets caught on either the bolt that secures it to the back cover or the flap on the front cover. So there's always this abrasion when you pull out the books around it. Nevertheless, beautiful journal. Wood, once again, with leather over it. This one is quite thick. It probably lasted me a fairly long time. It actually went from October of 2008 to August of 2009. So this was about 10 months. Nice journal. Right about this time, I started to shop for my journals while I traveled. And this is a gorgeous journal that has watercolor pictures of Venice. And I bought this in a stationery store in Venice. And once again, I really wish I had picked up more of these. It's just a lovely journal. Every 4 or 5 pages is another watercolor sketch of some Venetian scene. And I've used all various inks and things in this. It's just a gorgeous journal that sadly I could never find again. I went back to Venice around 6 months after I bought this, and I couldn't find it again. They had stopped selling them. So these are beautiful journals. These are examples of journals that I buy at my favorite stationery store in Venice in San Marco every time I'm there. It has a beautiful inlaid picture of Venice and lovely gold on the sides. I'm fairly certain these are hand bound. They come lined or unlined. They're fairly expensive. They're somewhere in the mid $150 range or so, depending on the exchange, but they are so beautiful. I mean, they look even more lovely with time, a bit aged and frayed and just so nice. So the name of the shop is Artigian Carta, and the gentleman who owns it is Massimo Doretto. He is a great guy and he makes a beautiful journal. He has all different ones within his shop. It's right on the way from Rialto to San Marco. If you were exploring where all the shops and things are, I'm sure you've walked by it. So here's a nice little journal I picked up in Florence, Italy. Very nice, leather bound here, beautiful Florentine paper here. It's a nice size. It's a little beat up, which I like because I carried it around for a while, way back in 2011. So this journal that looks Florentine actually came from a place called Papyrum in Barcelona, and it is an unlined journal, and my lines are all over the place. Sometimes I write landscape and sometimes I write portrait mode, if you will. And it looks like I use all sorts of different types of ink and different directions. So it's a really fun period of my life, and it looks like I used this back in 2015. So here's a really nice example of the sort of journal you can find on Etsy. So it has a nice leather binding and a hard paper cover, but very nice journal, has lines, very affordable to get these, probably under $30, $35. So I love that Venetian journal so much that had the watercolor pictures that I've been trying to find something similar for almost 20 years. I did find this on Etsy, and it has a really nice Venetian motif on the front with St. Mark and the winged lion that symbolizes St. Mark. And what really makes this cool is, and I can't show you because I can't show you what I write, but along each page is a map of the Grand Canal, including the palazzo where I stay when I'm in Venice. So it's just really fun using this journal. There's some space above and some space below, but a really nice, interesting journal and a really great shop that I got this from, Fabbricarte. and he's on Etsy. Does really beautiful work. Another really beautiful journal is this one from Bottega Obscura, also on Etsy. My wife bought me this for Father's Day. This just looks like an old book. It has my initials embossed in gold on the cover. A beautiful design, a bit of fading. It's already pre-aged, which is fun. It's a gorgeous binding, really interesting end papers, like some old book. This one does not have lines. I write quite small and in a bunch of different colors, so it ended up looking like a really interesting journal, and I really enjoyed using this. I went through this from July until October, so it didn't take me long to get through a journal this size at all. But Bottega Obscura, a great source on Etsy for journals. So my current journal is from Barnes & Noble, has this beautiful design like a dragon on the front, and this incredible binding. This would look great with a series of them on my shelf. It's a quite large journal. It's a bigger format, probably the biggest I've ever used. It's made by that same company, Fiorentina, that they use. Here's what the pages look like, very large, lines, easy to write in, has a ribbon to keep your spot. I believe this costs $55, and the beauty of it is that you could buy it online and they ship very, very quickly. It's truly one of my favorite journals. So now that we've established where I buy my journals, let's talk a bit about what I write in them. So the simplest thing is just daily occurrences. So I often write what I did that day and what's going on in my life and what's going on in the lives of the people I love around me. Now, this might sound kind of boring to some people, but what's great about it is I have a 4.5-year-old daughter. So I'm able to track all the things that she does on a daily basis. And it's a lot of fun, and it's truly a lot of different things. So I've been able to track her whole growth from being a baby to being a young lady like she is now. 4.5, and she seems like she's already ready for high school. So I learned that for me, it was really valuable to write down the sort of things I was concerned about, my internal monologues, and that by giving these anxieties a voice on the page, I could look at them dispassionately and decide whether or not what they were saying was valid or not. But even at that point, it was a multi-year struggle before I realized that almost all of that was much ado about nothing, and that most of what worries me never comes to pass. My journal, in part, is a tool for me to feel better, to work on my own psychology, and to see how my mind is, and to track my progress in working things out. Because I think that one of the goals in life is to become a better person, and your journals are the way that you can be honest with yourself, to actually commit to change, and to try to appraise how you comport yourself and how you can make yourself better. I think it's a great tool for revisiting your mind in the past. It's hard to see your own perceptions as they develop through time, but some of that is locked in your journal. But it requires a very high degree of honesty and a consistent commitment to writing these things down in the most honest voice that you can. And if you do this, you will see a narrative, you will see a change. I know for myself, like many people, I was very narcissistic and self-absorbed, and over time you get into a serious relationship and you realize that you can't make everything about yourself anymore if you want to stay in your relationship. And then your child comes along and then they become your top priority. And it's really quite the compelling narrative. And if I didn't have a journal documenting all of this, it might not be something I'm aware of. Now, it's something I'm actually really proud of, because progress and change is hard, but it has fantastic results. And when you accomplish something, you should be very proud of yourself for pulling it off. So my journal isn't all about anxiety. Another thing that I do is I set goals. And I don't just set goals, I write plans on how to achieve them. So I have found in my life that if you set an incredibly difficult, far-reaching goal, you may not reach it. But even if you get 80% of the way there, you do accomplish something great for yourself and for your life. So I like to write these goals down as a way to commit to them. And they're there for me to refer back to. And I can also assess my progress as I move along. You can do everything from deliberate about what sort of goal you feel like you need to set, put down the steps by which you can achieve it, and hold yourself accountable for each step and for achieving what you set out to do. It has made a huge difference in my life. Now, there's a whole bunch of ancillary benefits to journaling as well. You just feel calmer and more centered while you do it. It puts you in touch with yourself and your internal monologues. It's also a way to develop your handwriting and to have a little fun with your fountain pens. So it has that benefit as well. Now, there are times when I feel like writing, but I don't necessarily have a goal or an anxiety or a particularly interesting day, but I still want to fill up a page or two in my journal. In those cases, I write about something that happened in my life that was interesting that may not be remembered any other way. I had a very interesting life so far. I expect that to continue. I've traveled to many countries. I've embraced many cultures. I used to be a rock and ice climber before my daughter came along, but had incredible adventures with some really good friends out in the wilderness on cliff faces and on frozen cliff faces. So I have a lot of those stories to tell, and they're fun to write down. Also, growing up in the 1970s in a major city in the United States was a very unique experience, so I like to tell stories of my childhood as well. I think those will be very nice for my daughter to refer back to one day. So when I feel like writing, I do that. I'll tell a story from my past. What I don't like to do is just to write for its own sake. I've seen some other people who will copy portions of a book down or copy an entire book down or some such, and I have no interest in doing that. I don't write just for the sake of writing. It has to be unique and personal to me. Now, I am a writer and I get paid to write articles, so I do write my own article ideas down and I will kick around certain concepts and things. I have no desire to just recopy something that someone else has written. Another thing I like to journal about is ideas. So just something as basic as what is the nature of happiness? And I try to define it and work it through like a philosopher. A journal is a great place to work out your own individual philosophy and how you look at life. It's a great place to embrace those big questions and to answer them for yourself. Because if you don't answer those sort of questions for yourself, someone else will answer them for you. And that'll take you down a bad road. So if you want to start journaling, the simplest way to start out is to simply write the date and then describe the day. Today is October 19th. It's a cool day in early autumn. Start from there. Tell the truth and be consistent. Every day, make an entry, no matter how long it is. Before you know it, you'll have an entire journal filled up. It'll be unique and valuable to you. I hope you enjoyed this video about journaling. We certainly covered a lot of ground. I tried to go a little deeper than usual just to be completely honest with you and give you some of the real benefits of journaling. I've got so much out of it for my own life, and I certainly hope that you will too. I think journaling is an excellent way to get to know yourself, to become a better person, to make better connections, to keep learning, to keep your brain active and engaged, and just have an all-around better life. I hope you find that it's the same for you. Do me a favor, if you like this video, please hit the like button, consider subscribing, and share this with someone else who you think might enjoy this content. Thanks.